these two topics were covered by children in their household life. One of the difficulties of the school's collection is that the absence of any information about the informant does not always mean that the text was created by the child, him or herself. So in order to investigate ability of children to produce texts by themselves, compositions closely related to children, Cloche or games or Braganaga Amshire, toys and pastime, or being part of general knowledge in the form of unstructured or without plot text story, were chosen for this paper. Even though the selection is not ideal, it's kind of workable. Another difficulty of the school's collection is that it consists of official volumes and original copybooks of children. While copybooks were supposed to be written by each child in his or her collection of material, volumes have rather complex origin. Some stories were collected by teachers, some stories collected by children were transferred by teachers in order and other students, and this complicates a lot of things, especially irregularities in grammar. Okay. Since neither teachers nor students had ever been trained in the process of collection of folklore, the existence of the questionnaire was supposed to bridge that gap. However, the collection process was in reality defined by the questionnaire. Structure of many texts follow the structure of questions in the respective topic sections. For example, in Mohanterheim, my home area, there is a question about immigration. There is a question about songs and old sayings. You can see 1, 2, 3, a question on quality of land, and 4, a question about forests in the area. These are questions in the booklet. And this is the text produced by a child from Inishmerin in County Galway. And if we look side by side to the text produced for this particular topic, Mohanterheim, we see that the text closely follow the structure of the questionnaire. First, we have answer about immigration, then all sayings or songs, then the quality of land, and then if there are any forests in the area. The texts were written, this is one of the texts, by children on Inishmerin are in their original copybooks. So authorship or better penmanship should not be questioned. In their structure, they all closely follow the sequence of all the questions from the questionnaire. But while the structure is the same, however, variability of wording is evident, except for the song. They all consist one particular song, to some extent or another. However, the booklet influenced the way of expression as well. Here we have on the top the question from the booklet, and in the side we have answers to this particular question. The grammar remained as it is presented in the book, in the cover books. Existence of an adult informant in the texts, which with no strict structure, meaning plot, did not change the attitude of children at all for the formation of the text. Here is the text from Inishmerin with a known informant, meaning father of the collector. And as you can see, we have structure 1, 2, 3, 4 here as well. On your left, there are questions from the booklet, and on your right, the real text from the school's collection. As you can see, in this particular topic, again in Mohanterheim, the text closely follows the structure of the questionnaire. And this text is from Antrovoin. It's on the mainland in County Galway. So it's from completely different area, but still children are following the structure of the questionnaire. Okay. While previous examples were discussed without paying attention to the figures of their collectors, the figure of one collector in particular from the neighboring area should be discussed in more detail. Nora Kanimare, daughter of Tomas Kanimare, collected 39 of 77 texts in the official volume from Karna. Two texts from her in Koche and Ragani Agaska Amshara will be analyzed here. First, she demonstrated the same reliance on the questionnaire as Schoolchildren on Inishman and in Anthrovoin. On the other hand, some of the passages look like direct answers for questions. Sorry, on one hand. On the other, the texts follow the sequence in the booklet. In this example, you'll see on your screens, she starts her text by answering the first question in the games cluster. Later in the text, she provides a list of games and the way to play them, since there is also a question about that. While the text follows the structure of the questionnaire, it doesn't look artificial. Second, Nora reused to some extent linguistic material provided in the booklet, taking ready available constructs and inserting them in her narrative. You can see that in bold. Again, on your left is questions from the booklet. Velidas Eden. On your right, citations from Nora's text. She used them in more artistic way than it was done by children on Inishnaun in the previous part, transforming them into more elaborate sentences. Third, for her texts, Nora constructed general conclusions. However, it is not clear if it was taught at school or it was the influence of the traditional storytelling. This feature, however, is not unusual for the texts analyzed in this paper. It is many games we play at the school at home. She used in the games part, in the games topic. And this is the number of pastime activities the children have all around my area in the toys and pastime. It should not be forgotten that the texts were created as a composition exercise, thus used some suggested or discussed ready-made structures in comparison to formulas in adult culture. We have several instances of from different places, beginning with more copy-like examples in one school. Two formulaic expressions such as Shinyan Hui, this is the way, used in several hundreds of schools, the majority being in Kanti Galway and Kanti Mayo, to describe the course of action. Moreover, there was a tendency to begin texts on the same topic similarly, especially when they were created in the same class. The similarity, however, ends with the initial formulas, and the rest of the texts differ greatly in wording. And in some cases, these initial formulas were direct answers to the questionnaire. And there was no, in others, there was no such connection. So these are some of the examples from Inishnoin. These are formulas of the beginning in the texts about holy wells. This tendency should not be confused with the one resulted in the school scheme being a composition exercise when children created similar texts to each other in order not to fail a class. While the texts below here have identical beginning, they differ in the description afterwards. However, the structure of these descriptive passages is identical, even to the point that all three extracts end with the word relic. You can see the last word in each of the column, cemetery, followed by narratives about each holy well. One could assume that children without an adult assistant just reused each other's work, with similarities in this particular, since similarities in each particular case are great. However, it could have been due to the specifics of the topic, the holy wells, that children were guided to reuse some common source, since the comparison with the text mentioning an adult informant. Here we have gives the same result concerning similarities. You can see in italics that texts have in common. Another example of the influence of the questionnaire had on the text was the formation of the personal forms. The absence of person narrative can be expected in Dragonagas Kahamshire topic due to its personal and descriptive nature, unlike the topic on games, questionnaire on games. In the majority of cases, children used third personal pronouns, third personal forms of verbs, and words like dinie, people, kalini, girls, bukhali, boys, poshti, children, and the pronoun shir. However, we have on the right texts from the topic on games, and we see that it uses a lot of me pronoun, I am, me, or in the majority of cases, muit, and the second form of the pronoun ag, because arguably this was done as children felt themselves as playing as a group. I'm trying to now reduce the text. There was another feature of the school's collection, probably that arised from it being a collection exercise, composition exercise, is the volume of the text. Sometimes we see in the collection extremely short texts, and while this feature could not be due to children collecting from unwilling adults, this feature arguably shows that while teachers participated greatly in the shaping of the collection, in some cases they were not forcing children to create text in a certain manner required by the course. Probably I'm out of time now, and I'm conclude with this. It should be noted, however, that the extreme shortness of the texts in the collection, while not being an unusual feature, cannot be regarded as its characteristic. It seems that children and teachers as well try to create more presentable text for the submission in the majority of cases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikita. Are you able to just stop sharing your screen now, and then we'll be able to see everybody on the screen, and we can see what we've got in the way of questions.
Okay, I see. What should I do? Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So in terms of questions, whether anybody wants to stick up a hand and say them, or type them out in the chat, and I can read them out, whichever. So is there anybody who'd like to let us started with a question? We've got time for a couple.
So I've had the iPad on charge, except I haven't. It's been plugged in. It wasn't switched on. Just plugged in now.
Anybody there with a question? Sorry, I'm just having a look.
Can I ask a technical question?
Yes, please do.
On the toys and the material culture part, were there any visuals? Because everything you showed was textual.
Not when the texts were created by children. There are visuals mostly in the texts that were created by teachers. They were drawing some things. As far as I remember from those texts I've been looking at, I cannot remember any pictures, probably because it was a composition exercise, not an art class, and children were supposed to create texts. But again, I'm not saying that there are none. Probably there were children who created visual descriptions, but in the majority of cases, these are textual descriptions.
Thank you.
I can see that Alva has her hand raised.
Thank you, Felicity. Thanks, Nikita, Vishesh and Samu. That was really interesting. Thank you for your paper. I just wondered if there were many more references to children telling Fianna folk tales. There was interesting that reference that they had about one of their pastimes was to tell stories. Were there many more examples of that?
They do. They often talk about their pastimes rather briefly, so they don't go into much of the detail. I can look into the collection, but it's not like they're saying that, okay, we are, I don't know, narrating stories about Fionn, and these are the stories.
I see.
So it's like we are telling stories, and that's it. We are not going into detail about the list of the stories, the context. No, just hear what we do. Thank you very much for your attention.
I see. Okay, nothing too specific then.
No.
Míle buíochas, that's great. Thank you.
And I see Fionnuala, do you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Thank you, Nikita.
Thank you very much.
I've worked with the school collection all my research life, I suppose, for years and years, and published most of my articles are to do with the school's collection, specifically proverbs. So I would say, first of all, the Irish Folklore Commission was within the Department of Education. So that was why the people were able to harness the help of
yes,
the national school system, which covered the entire country of the 26 counties. And there had been, when schools were set up, there was a dense network of schools. No child had to walk more than a few miles to school.
Yeah.
That was part of the, so it was a way of covering the entire country, and it was a way of finding out about customs and other things that children would be able to. I mean, you did say there were only a certain number of topics in the handbook that was produced for the teachers.
Yeah.
And these were topics that the commission felt that children of that age could cope with, and they were encouraged to go to people in the community who would be familiar with what they were collecting about. It is a wonderful, wonderful collection. It also covered the 26 counties in a narrow time frame, so they knew what was happening at Halloween, at Christmas, and so on, or if one custom obtained only in Leinster or only in Connacht, and so on. So it was a fantastic scheme. And for certain topics, such as proverbs, which is my own area of research, it was excellent, and it will never be covered again. And I looked at, instances of, for instance, mistakes, copying, all that sort of thing. And I looked, I don't know if you mentioned or not, but apart from the children's original copybooks, all are preserved in the National Folklore Collection.
Well, sadly, not all of them.
Not all of them. Well, some.
No, a lot are missing because teachers, in some cases, teachers didn't know they needed to submit the original copybooks as well. And for example, for Nora Nikanimari, the copybook I need a lot is missing from the archive. Right.
Well, in any of the counties I looked at, which was 14, which is over half of the entire country, copybooks were present, and I did compare. And the thing is that what was in the copybooks of each individual's child in the class, the teachers didn't put all of that material into the bound volumes, as we call them, in the department. But you can compare what's in the bound volumes with these.
I'm doing specifically that in my thesis, yeah.
The counties that I was looking at, and I compared for copying you know, one child from another, inaccuracies and so on. I know we're dealing with a very short form, proverbs, you know, one sentence long. And it was a very suitable topic for children to collect. And as I say, it absolutely hasn't been surpassed and never will be done again. So it's a marvelous, marvelous source for certain
I absolutely
topics.
agree.
So
Thank you. I think we've probably got time for a very quick question, Margaret, if you've got one, and then we'll need to move on to the next paper.
Yes, very enjoyable. Thank you. When you talk about self-collection, did the children collect from each other? For example, skipping rhymes, ball game bouncing, or hand clapping rhymes. Did they collect as in from each other?
No, when I say self-collection, I mean they collected from themselves. So they, in these specific topics, they did not, arguably, they did need another person to collect from. So they could do that from their heads.
And were there many skipping and ball bouncing rhymes?
I'm not sure, to be honest. That is.
Can maybe look online. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Reminding us.
And yeah, just on behalf of the whole audience again, I think we'll have another digital round of applause. Thank you so much for a really
Thank you very
fascinating
much.
paper.
Thank you. Thank you.